Denied. Secret Six decides to trash its continuity by publishing issues out of order. Green Lantern: The Lost Army reintroduces a villain from the far distant time of 2 years ago. And name a better duo than Harley Quinn and padding out half your issue with a dream sequence. All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 202 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and I've only got like one or two things I need to say before we get into comics. First and foremost, if you were watching the video version of this episode, and I mean actually watching, if you're listening it's not going to matter at all, but actually watching, you may notice during certain reviews, somewhere scattered throughout this episode, I am going to be sweating like a pig. And the reason for that is because it is hot as hell. It is so incredibly hot. The room I film this in has pretty much no air circulation and also lights from every angle to keep things nice and toasty. So forgive me if I look like I just got done eating at an all-you-can-eat buffet and am just the most disgusting looking human being on earth, but it really couldn't be helped. So I'm sure I sound so appealing to everyone listening to the audio version, but yeah. Just wanted to make that clear. I'm not having a heart attack on screen. I'm just really warm. Other than that, the only other thing I want to talk about is as of the recording of this episode, it has been about 5 days that Superman 2025, a James Gunn film, has been in theaters. I have watched it. I have thoughts. I have not yet been able to share those thoughts in movie review format over on our sister channel, Mild Fuzz Movies. Be sure to check that out if you haven't already. But if you are the type of person who watches a show like this, even tangentially just checking in every once in a while, you need to watch this movie. That's not even a debate. You need to watch this movie. Go buy a ticket. Go watch it now. You absolutely need to see this movie. And I know, I hear you. I hear the objections from a couple of you. Oh, I'm all superheroed out. I don't want to do any of that. Oh, I don't like James Gunn films. I don't like his humor. I get it. I'm in the same boat as a lot of you, but like, you gotta watch this movie. It's. I don't want to spoil anything, but you gotta watch this movie. And that's the last I'll say on that. So, you're not here for my movie opinions or me telling you that I sweat a lot. No, you're here for comics. And I will tell you the comics that are coming out in this episode in alphabetical order, not necessarily show order. We have Black Canary, Dr. Fate, Doomed, Green Lantern: The Lost Army, Harley Quinn, Justice League, Martian Manhunter, Robin Son of Batman, Secret Six, and Superman Wonder Woman. No major events except for Darkseid War, which frankly, I mean, that's just the rest of Justice League. That's just going to be every time that pops up. So, yeah. Don't know what I'm starting with. Don't know what I'm ending with. All I know is it's so hot. Oh my God. I'm going to die. Justice League number 42, written by Geoff Johns, art by Jason Fabok. So, last issue was kind of just the beginning of the arc. 40 was prologue. Last issue was 100% the beginning, and it set up so much. Anti-Monitor's here. We're looking for a woman. I think her name is like Lissa Black or something like that. Gail, daughter of Darkseid. It's a lot. So, we open up this issue with Superman cauterizing a wound on Lex Luthor, and he's using his heat vision, and he's like, yeah, your sister shot you. And she's like, what? No, she wouldn't do that. And he's like, well, she did, and it's some sort of special metal I don't recognize, so what that all about? And Lex looks around, he's like, where the hell are we? And he's like, oh, we're on Apokolips. So then we cut over to Darkseid, who's also on Apokolips, and Desaad and Steppenwolf are there. And Desaad's like, hey, Superman's on the planet. You wanna go kill him? And Steppenwolf's like, I'll go kill him. I'll gladly do it. I pledge to you, my lord. And Darkseid's like, do you honestly think that like your stupid little axe can do anything to him? Like, I don't care about his body. He's not a god. He's just a dude. I care about taking Superman's soul. And he says, I want you to take every slave and tell them that the one who kills the Kryptonian will be freed from servitude. And everyone's like, no slave on this planet can kill the Superman, like, what are you doing? And then they realize, oh, Superman has hope. And by showing this unending stampede of people just trying to kill him, it's going to ruin his hope. Got it. So he also says that that they want to deal with the anti-monitor situation on Earth, bring everybody, including Calabac. And they're like, Calabac's a bad idea. And he's like, you're not going to not include Calabac. And he's like, all right, fair enough. So at that point, they say, hey, look, you got a lot going on here. What are we actually fighting for? Is it like revenge for the Justice League? Is it the Anti-Monitor? Is it your daughter? What are we doing here? And he doesn't say anything, and everyone's like, oh, we're fighting for Darkseid. Got it. So we cut back to Earth, where the rest of Justice League is kind of just looking on. Some people are injured and hurt. And a bunch of shadow demons are kneeling before the Anti-Monitor along with Grail. And Wonder Woman's like, hey, Steve, did you get everybody out of the area? And he's like, uh-huh. And she's like, all right, well, time for me to fight a god. To which point Grail notices and just like, oh, you think you're doing something, aren't you? But you're not going to have any fun with that. So she sends in a bunch of shadow demons. Wonder Woman's ready to start fighting them off. But before he can, or she can, Anti-Monitor comes in, just immediately interrupts the fight, just stops right in the middle. And like Wonder Woman's like, what are you? And he's like, I'm desperate. And he blasts off a huge thing of energy of trying to basically kill Wonder Woman. But before he can, there's a whole lot of before he cans in this. Metron teleports in, and it's right in between Wonder Woman and Anti-Monitor. And he's like, hey, how's it going, Grail? I'm still watching you because you're dangerous, and I know you like to play this game, but so do I. And he teleports the Justice League out. And Grail's like, oh, he thinks he can hide. Don't worry about it. We'll find them. And he's like, yeah, well, first you're going to bring your dad to me. And he's like, yeah, of course, you're going to kill Darkseid. That's 100%. But, like, cool your jets. We got other stuff we need to do. So then we cut over to Marina Black. That's her name. Not Alyssa. Where'd I get Alyssa? Marina Black is talking to Mr. Miracle. And he's like, hi, I'm Marina Black. You're Mr. Miracle. And he's like, yes, I am. You can call me Scott. And it's like, cool. Anyway, come with me. And she's like, I got the Furies following me. Maybe that's something we could deal with. And she's like, that's literally not even on my radar. They are so non-threats to me. Don't worry about it. And Scott asks who she is, like what her role is. And she says, I am humanity's savior. And we get a trophy room shot of all the different things that she's captured/killed. And she reveals that she was an Amazonian assassin from back in the day. She was given a mission from the old gods to save the world from war, and so that's what she's been doing all these years. She's been fighting for decades in the shadows to take out threats, she says, such as the Scourge of the Red Panzer or the religious fanatics of Minister Blizzard, and she's done all that in preparation for this. And she says, I knew Darkseid would be the ultimate threat to all of humanity, so I did the only logical thing. I had his baby. I had his daughter, and I taught her to hate Darkseid. And so she would have the ability to kill him, being of his blood. And so she went out, she found the Anti-Monitor, the two will fight, there will be a great war. And Mr. Miracle's like, yeah, but you're doing that on Earth, and that's going to cause like billions to die. And she's like, yeah, well, freedom ain't free. So she makes her point saying, are you going to stand with me or are you going to be a problem? And he's like, I don't even know if you can kill Darkseid. Like, the best thing to do is just keep him away from Earth. And she's like, wrong answer. And goes and stabs Mr. Miracle with a big spear she has. And she's like, I can't let you get in the way of my plans. I've sacrificed too much. Mr. Miracle blasts her away with some energy and says, Mother Box, get me to people who are on our side. And so he teleports out. We then see where Metron took the Justice League. Turns out it's the Rock of Eternity, which Shazam is like, yeah, this is my place. It's kind of more magic than anything else. And Metron's like, yeah, it's outside the multiverse zone thing. They can't find us here. We're safe here. And Green Lantern's like, hold on. Hold the phone. I just had an event over in my book where I dealt with the new gods. And let me tell you, all y'all are pricks, especially you, Metron. And he's like, oh, don't get me wrong. I know that I'm a prick, and that's exactly the reason why I'm stepping in here. You guys can't save the world. And they're like, what? We're the Justice League. We absolutely could do that. He's like, no. You are so outclassed here. Take whatever you want and just go to a different universe. Or at least get off of Earth, because like that place is absolutely screwed. And they're like, hey, That's not what we do. We're gonna fight. And Wonder Woman wraps her lasso around Metron, and she's like, I'm getting answers here. I want to know the truth. And Green Lantern's like, yeah, don't like. He doesn't know anything. He just gets all of his answers from his chair. Like, he's got a Wikipedia going on in there. And so she asks the question anyway, and she's like, all right, how do I get the information I need to stop the Anti-Monitor? And he says, you can't do that. And she's like, tell me. And he's like, you got to get me out of the chair. You got to take the chair away from me. And she's like, cool. She yanks on the lasso. Immediately, energy starts flowing out of the chair, going nuts. And he's like, oh, the chair, it can't be tamed. Someone's got to sit in the chair. And immediately Batman's like, I got this. And he sits on the chair, energy blasts from his eyes. He has visions of Steppenwolf, of Superwoman, who's in jail with her baby, Grail and the Anti-Monitor, and he's like, oh my god, I can hear all the answers. This is crazy. Is all this real? Hold on, I gotta run some tests. Who killed my parents? And the chair pings, and he's like, Joe Chill, got it. Takes a second. What's the real name of the Joker? The chair pings, and he's like, well, no, that's not possible. But before, of course, we can get that answer, all the rest of the Justice League are like, hey, Batman, you got glowing eyes. You cool? You doing all right up there? And he's like, yeah, no, I'm doing great. I'm a god now. So that's the issue. God, if anybody, when this was written, could have known how long the payoff to that Joker line was gonna take, dear God. Man, I remember I was first getting into comics, like when this issue came out and it hit the news cycles. And then it just took forever. Like I was already like 5 years in by the time that we actually got answers. Yeah, so no, it's a solid issue. It does feel like a lot of the back end is set up. Like we don't actually get progression on the Superman plot. We don't actually get that much progression on the Marina Black plot. But we do get progression on the Justice League and Batman becoming a god of knowledge. So, you know, a little bit of forward progression, but the real triumph here is the art. Jason Fabok's art is fantastic. It looks great on every page. Cannot fault a single panel of it. So, collectively, I'd say this one probably manages to squeak up to the 8. It's close, but like the art really does push it over here. It gets it to that point. And honestly, those last like 4 pages with Darkseid or Batman sitting in the chair, I think that's probably worthy of an 8 all on its own. So, yeah, decent issue, great ending. Secret 6, number 4, written by Gail Simone, art by Ken Lashley and Tom Derenick. So, a little bit confusing. Issue 3 was set immediately after this issue, but it came out before and only after a significant delay, which leads me to believe, even in this trade, the way that it's organized is that this issue should absolutely be read before issue 3. So, where do we pick up? So technically the last thing that happened was they escaped the prison and they said, we're coming after you, Mockingbird or Mockingjay, whatever your name is. We see that Big Show and Catman are out getting a hot dog, a chili dog out of the stand. And Catman's like, this is ridiculous. We're being hunted. What are we doing here? And Big Show's just like, oh, you're wound so tight. Like, don't worry about it. We're on the run. But it's we got to take care of some stuff first, and we got to get to our hiding place. And they talk about how they left the girls alone in the van, and Big Show's just like, yeah, well, Black Alice is hurt. Ventriloquist, who knows what's going on with her, but Strix and Porcelain, they can definitely take care of themselves, so no big deal. We don't have to worry about protecting them. And we see that they're in the middle of this big city. I think New York, but I could be wrong. And Catman finally eases up. He takes a bite of the chili dog, and he's like, oh, that is nice. So they make their way back to the... Oh, sorry, I said Big Show. Big Shot. Big Show's the wrestler. My bad. Big Shot. So they go back to the van, and they're asking, like, okay, where are we going? And Big Shot's like, we're moving out into the suburbs. You'll hate it. And as they get out, they say, hey, where is Porcelain? And Ventriloquist is there saying, like, oh, still in her apartment getting her gear. And it's like, oh, where's Strix? And they just look up in a tree, and Strix is just, like, looking out, keeping an eye on everything. Ventriloquist is not fond of the chili dogs, is a little bit angry there. And they're like, hey, wait a minute, where's Black Alice? Did you leave her in the car alone? And Ventriloquist says, no, she's not alone. And then we just see her sitting in the van inside with the Ferdy, the puppet, mannequin, living thing, whatever you want to call it. So at that point, as they're prepping, looking at what to do, in walks this guy that they don't recognize. And he says, well, I'm ready. And they're like, do we know you? And then Catman sniffs and just like, yeah, we do. That's Porcelain. And turns out Porcelain is non-binary. Turns out sometimes feels like a man, sometimes feels like a woman. Right now, dressed like a man. And Big Shot's like, that ain't right. And he's like, excuse me, what? But turns out he's just going into his car, grabs a little dusted off fedora, and puts it onto Porcelain's head, and just like, there you go. It looks good on you, son. So he's an ally. He understands. We then see Strix jumps out of the tree and passes a note over to Catman saying we're being followed. And Catman's like, yeah, I gathered, like, no big deal. So they all hop in the back of the van. And once again, Big Shot says, like, all right, yep, we're people who are following us have resources and a network, all that stuff. We're heading out into the suburbs where nobody could possibly follow us. Nobody knows what we're doing. So we see 3 masked figures that we don't know who they are yet. They call up Mockingbird and say, hey, they've left wherever they're headed. They're on their way. And we cut over to Mockingbird, who I'm not sure if we're supposed to know who this is. Based on the art, he's dressed in a greenish colored suit, and he has a woman sitting on his desk, and they're in the middle of like a parking garage or something. And they're like, look, these guys don't really seem like much. Are you sure you want us going after them? And Mockingjay is like, oh, absolutely. They're wanted for murder and manslaughter and more murder. It's a whole bunch. You should definitely be going after them. And they hang up the call, and Mockingbird continues to talk to the woman who says, he says before they hang up, by the way, I have your friend. Once you complete this, she's free to go. So hang up the call, talks to the girl on the table saying, Harley Quinn is, the side piece, the candy for Joker. Maybe we could give you a sexy outfit and a code name like Thrush or Bush Tit. And she's like, what is with all of you and your bird fetishes? I don't get it. So again, if you follow this in issue order, we know that Mockingbird's identity is Riddler, but maybe not in reading order. I don't know. Anyway, we go to the suburbs, the house, and the rest of the team is like, oh God, what's wrong with this place? It's horrific. And it's just a totally normal suburban home. And Big Shot's like, oh yeah, this is America in miniature, Mikasa Sukasa. Everyone's welcome in. And as they walk in, there's literally garden gnomes on the side. And Catman's trying to assure Strix it'll be okay. And Strix just wants to bring a garden gnome inside. So there's that. As they are getting settled in, they look out the window and just like, yeah, we've been followed here. A man and 2 women, and the women seem very serious, so we're gonna have to deal with that. Turns out the man is strapping a grenade launcher onto a squirrel, and the other people are like, don't do that. I told you not to involve rodents in our thing. Stop doing that. So as everyone's getting ready to attack, Big Shot opens up the door, and the 3 are just standing there with a plate of cookies saying, hi, sorry to be a bother. We made cookies. Would you like some? And they're like, yeah, that's probably poison. He's like, suit yourself. We're going to have some. So they all sit down, and, the Secret Six are all very much on edge, but the other people just make themselves at home, and they're just like, look, here's the deal. Could I get something to drink? Just some water? Cool. Here's the deal. We have a mutual oppressor. Mockingbird has taken 2 women that I care about deeply, and he's promised their freedom as long as you all agree to go into a private prison for 1 year. And immediately, everyone's back in their costumes and all that. Immediately, Porcelain's like, no, we're not doing that. And Catman's like, I've been in that prison. You could not ever force me back in there ever again. No deal. And they're like, fair enough. We figured we'd ask. Well, let's go ahead and get this started. And then the fight scene breaks out. Strix is kind of just sitting out the fight for the time because she's enjoying the cookies. Meanwhile, everybody else gets involved except for Ventriloquist, who just enjoys watching from the side. Big Shot gets punched in the face, and it kind of just welts there. Like the fist mark just stays for a while, and the person who throws the punch is like, Jesus, man, what are you? And he's just like, oh, I just got one of those faces. So he punches back. Again, we know his identity because this is out of order. I don't understand why they did that. Porcelain then proceeds to fight against one of the guys by pulling out a sledgehammer. It's just literally an extended fight scene. There's not a whole lot that happens. There's one part, though, where one of their masks comes off to reveal another mask underneath it. And that mask belongs to a villain from a single issue, it might have been an annual, of Batgirl, who was called Ragdoll. So Ragdoll's one of the villains. We don't know the other ones yet. One of the other ones is fighting against Big Shot, and they're about to break a vase, to which Big Shot says, hey, that's my wife's. Just hold on a minute. And he just fixes it up and is like, all right, continue. And then they keep punching each other. Really a whole lot more fighting happens, not much else. We see that as Catman has Ragdoll on the ground, is about to start like really throwing punches, he's stopped by one of the other women, and he stops and like stops his punching and says, wait a minute, I know you. And she's like, no, you don't. And he's like, yes, I do. I recognize your smell. That year I was in the prison, you stopped by. You gave me that cat. That was the only thing that kept me going. And she's like, well, I'm glad you had that at least. So be it. So she asks, like, yeah, hey, look, these are my associates. This is Jeanette and Ragdoll. I'm not even sure what her name is. Scandal Savage. That's it. How did I forget? This is Scandal Savage. So Jeanette, who is apparently also known as Banshee, and Ragdoll. So they're like, hey, please reconsider going into the jail peacefully. No? Okay, whatever. Well, you seem like decent people. Regardless, they're going to be coming after you. So good luck. We are going to go after him on our own, and hopefully we'll be able to deal with all this and get our people back. And Secret Six is like, wait a minute, hold on, we could team up. Don't you maybe just team up? Maybe that would make everything better. But like, you guys have absolutely no ability to fight as a team. If you can fix that up, maybe, just maybe it'd be worth it. But right now, nah, not at all. So yeah, we're out. And so they start leaving, but Jeanette, Banshee, stays behind and it's just like, okay, this might sound a little bit weird. I'm a Banshee. I can kind of sense death, and there is so much death in this house. One of you guys is going to be dying very soon. I'm sorry to say. By the way, there's an LGBT mixer coming up. You're all invited. Have fun. And so she leaves, and the rest of the Secret Six are left just standing there like, what the hell's a mixer? So, yeah. The issue itself I like. I like the humor of it. There's so many like little gag panels where it's just like the fight scene's going on and we just cut to like Strix eating a cookie, and like the unexpected nature of them trying to earnestly be like, look, we don't want to fight. Like, let's see if we can do this naturally. Also good. I'm down with all of that. My only thing is from the meta perspective of this was published after issue 3, which makes sense. It's issue 4, but like reading order, I don't feel like it makes any sense. I feel like you have to read this one after issue 2 and then go into issue 3. There's no way that it makes sense outside of that, because now, like when Big Shot gets his face punched and it holds like that, you know why that is. It's not like a secret to be revealed. It's automatically there. Plus, the next issue picks up mentioning the LGBT mixer as if it was common knowledge, and then we get the setup here. It feels like something happened in the back end, probably something with like art being turned in late or something like that. Maybe a miscommunication in editorial. I don't know. But it definitively hurts the reading experience. So I kind of got to dock this issue for it. Because this is the one that came out at the wrong time. It came out after that issue. If you just didn't have the last issue, or if you had the last issue and then didn't have this one, it would have been much better. But yeah, I'm going to say this is a 6.5. If it were published in order, this would probably be a 7.5, because I really did like the humor of it, but I got to dock it down. So 6.5. Hopefully we don't have any more snafus moving forward. Robin, Son of Batman #2, written and art by Patrick Gleason. So last issue, Damian came to a moral choice that he has to undo all the bad things he did in his training during his year of blood, where he was just kind of a dick. And he goes around doing that. We also got the introduction of a new villain / antagonist for Damian, who's the daughter of Nobody from the first arc of Batman and Robin, and she seems to have a bone to pick as well. So We open up with a flashback to when Damien was 9 and he just won a sword fight against his mom and says like, haha, yield, Talia. To which point she just sweeps the leg, grabs a sword, and she's like, what do you think you're doing? I won that one. She's like, you didn't take the killing blow. This fight is, you can't hesitate. You can't stop for any reason. So yeah, I'm going to win this one. You got to follow through. And she whaps him in the back of the head and says, also, never call me Talia again. You understand that, you little bastard? And he's like, yes, mother. So she says, look, you've learned a whole lot more than me or my father expected of you. You are truly great, and soon the world will kneel before you. It needs you so desperately. And as the moon rises tonight, you begin your 10th year, and you know what that means. And he's like, yep, year of blood. I'm ready. I'm going to do it. And she's like, oh, yeah, no, I definitely get that. And as soon as you finish your year of blood, your training's complete, so let's do it. Let's go. So we see there's a whole ritual, a whole thing where he is putting on a cape and year of blood, blah, blah, blah. So we cut to South America right now, and Goliath and Robin come in holding a giant stone head that was picked out in the last issue, and everyone in the town's freaking out like, oh God, he's back! Oh, what sweet horror will he inflict upon us this time? And then they put the head back on top of the statue, and everyone's like, oh, hey, that's the head of our guardian that was stolen. I can't believe it. Why would he come back? Maybe he's had a turn of heart. We're all saved. That's fantastic. And the moment he puts the head and like sits on there, the guardian, the stone statue, wakes up and just yells out, cursed forever, and starts attacking Goliath and Robin. And they're like, oh God, all right, look, I gave you back your head. What else do you want? And he apparently has the ability to, it's kind of a stealing the soul / absorbing the bodies of these people who wrong this village and turns them into stone statues / as he calls them, bricks for his temple. So we see Robin and Goliath are slowly like pixelized and turned into like stone beings. And they managed to break out just through force of will and do whatever. And they continue to go up and attack. And they're like, okay, look, we don't want to, kill you again. We don't want to cause problems, but you got to stop attacking us. And during all the weird, crazy magic being thrown around, Damien catches the glimpse of nobody out of the corner of his eye. And he's like, oh, you're throwing me mirages and stuff like that to one of my lowest moments as Robin. I can't believe it. And then he's hit by it again and is like, oh, I can see you, all of the bad things you've done, Damien. So Damien falls out of the magic again. Goliath catches him. Goliath ends up using his strength to throw, as far as I could tell, it looks like a giant bottle cap at the stone creature, stops him just long enough, but dislodges the platform that nobody was standing on. And she's forced to jump down and save some innocents who are in the way. But she's still cloaked, so they're like, who was it? And he's just like, oh, don't worry about it. But as she lands, she's forced to use an energy blast, or a sonic upgrade, she calls it, to blast some people out of the way, which drains just enough energy out of her system that the cloaking disappears off her leg. And Damien notices and just like, wait a minute, hold on, you're actually here? There's a real nobody? What the hell? And she's like, yeah, that's right, Damien. It was all thanks to you. So they're still trying to fight against the stone guardian thing that's saying like, oh, the world will weep in judgment that befalls you. And nobody's like, yeah, that's right, Damien's a dick. Judge him poorly. Send him to hell. And immediately Damien's like, look, I don't know who you think you are, but like, the real nobody was not a teenage girl, which your outfit is so skin tight that's like super obvious. And she just throws some punches. Damien is distracted, so he gets caught by the guardian again. So does nobody. They start getting turned into stone, and nobody's like, no, not like this, I have to be the one to kill him. And then we flash back. Where did we start? So the year of blood, day one, they're looking over this temple, and they hear a guy shouting out to the kids like, hey, kids, stay away from that temple. It says that our guardian will protect us from all the bad things that happen, and some say that inside of his temple is a great treasure. And Damien and his ninjas are like, okay, ninjas, you go attack the town so the guardian will come out to play, and then I'll sneak into the temple. So they do exactly that. As Damien goes inside, he sees that there is a giant glowing sword in the stone, and he's like, of course that's for me. Of course I'm going to take that. So as he draws the sword, he's like, oh, it's got perfect bounce, light of flower, and magic? Ah, beautiful. And immediately the Guardian just comes back and he's like, you have desecrated my temple. I've done the blood for the blood gods. And he takes the sword, Damien does, and just slices the head off of the Guardian, just like, well, I'm not here for the sword, I'm here for your head. And all the people in the village are watching on like, what did you do? That thing protected us from like cartels and other bad things, and like our village is just going to be destroyed. And he's like, I don't care. I'm taking your stuff. So he just leaves. Then we come back to the present. We see that they once again get blasted out of the Guardian's hands, but this time by a cartel that has already taken over the village, and now it's just attacking the Stone Guardian because they got beef with it. So nobody tries waking up Damien because this is all his fault and she wants him to deal with it. And he's like, hey, if you touch me again, I'm going to kill you just like I did the previous nobody. And I'm sure you know what happened there. And she's like, oh, yeah, I see how it is. You drop the hero act as soon as things get tough. Yeah, you suck. Everything about you sucks. But maybe, just maybe, we can actually help someone today if you're willing to not suck for like 5 seconds. And he's like, hey, this is my fight, and I don't need you giving me pep talks and getting in my way. I was going to do this anyway. So they run in, and working together, they immediately start beating against the cartel. And we get some more narration from the villagers who are like, seriously though, why did that demon kid show back up and like give back the head? And the village elder or whatever's like, who knows? Maybe he found someone to put him onto the right path. Maybe he's just realizing he was a dick. Who knows? And as they say, well, can we trust him? And I say, well, he fights hard for us, so sure, why not? So the rest of the cartel runs away as nobody puts out some big sonic blasts. And we see that the Guardian is so impressed at their display to save the village that he's like, all right, we're cool. And the Guardian says like, yeah, well, you're cool with us as well. No big deal. So the Guardian goes back up to his resting spot. And Damien's like, hey, I don't have the sword anymore. I promise I'll bring that back. And the Guardian's like, whatever. The sword wasn't the important thing in the temple. I really don't care if you keep it or not. And he's like, wait, hold on. That wasn't the treasure of the temple? And he's like, no, it was deeper. And Damien's like, well, all right. Well, now I just feel gypped. So we see nobody comes up and he's got a knife. She's got a knife to Damien's throat and is like, all right. Well, right now I could watch you take the last breath at the end of my blade, and that would be the perfect end to this day. And he's just like, have you ever killed anyone? She's like, doesn't respond. And he's like, yeah, that's what I thought. I've killed plenty of people, so get out of here. And she's like, well, you killed my dad, and that seems like a good person to be my first kill. And just like, well, you want me to apologize? And she's like, no, what? So I can forgive you? Nah, not a chance. You are not forgiven. And he's like, okay, fair. And she says, in fact, I'm not going to let you quit out on this. I'm going to force you to resolve all of the sins that you committed during the year of blood, and only then at the very end will I kill you. And he's like, that's exactly what I was going to do. You can't take credit for that. That was my plan. That was already what I was going to be doing. And she's like, it's not just you anymore, it's us. And that's it. That's the issue. So in general, I like it. The one con I'll throw out to begin with is it feels like the Stone Guardian, the Temple Guardian, is just like the most inconsistent powers, where it's just like, oh, it's turning us to stone, but then it's not, but then it is, but then it's not, but then it is. It's like, okay, but like, what does it do? How are you getting out of this? And why is it such a threat if like it's just easily snappable, you know? So a little bit poor on that side of things, but for the ending of the book, for the middle bit as well of showing the Year of Blood happening, I think all that was very well done. Patrick Gleason does have great art style. It's kind of just what I associate Damien with when I think of how he looks. So for sure, there's a lot there. I do like nobody's characterization as I think it's going to go down, where it kind of someone more inexperienced, but someone who's so driven by this vengeance, this like dark purpose, and then something that could be lessened over time as she wants to see justice done. And so there's going to be this balance here where she realizes vengeance and revenge isn't the right way to do things. So I like the stand-up here. I do like the ending bit where Damien is like, wait a minute, that's my plan. You can't just hijack my plan and say that it was your plan all. Shut up, you can't do that. That's just funny to me. So yeah, I'm gonna say this one's a 7.5. I really do enjoy it, and I can see this getting better with each and every issue. Green Lantern Lost Army #2, written by Cullen, Bunn, art by Jesús, Saíz. So last issue, we had a lot. So there was the setup that the Green Lantern Corps, or at least a small section of them, woke up in a completely strange place. They came across Krona, the old Guardian, who looks totally normal or whatever. He's doing research. They came across Guy Gardner, who's now a combo Green and Red Lantern. And they came across a giant pyramid that has a bunch of red energy in it. So we get a flashback to John Stewart's days back in the military. They came across a village, and they realize that it's completely empty, that everyone's just abandoned the place. And they're like, well, why did they all leave? Like, we could have helped them. And they're just like, nah, they don't care about us helping them. They just don't want to be in the middle of all this. They saw us coming, and they left immediately. They just want to be able to get back to normal again. And John Stewart's like, yeah, I guess that's what any of us want. So we go back to now, and we're looking at this giant pyramid of red energy, and they're like, okay, what's this? And Guy says that it's calling for his red ring, so it's definitely related to that. And they don't think that it's a power battery, but Krona says this thing can charge your rings. According to my power readings, you can charge off of this. And they're all like, do we do it? Like, we're low on that power, but this seems like a bad idea. And before they can really do anything, they get attacked by a bunch of alien creatures who have spears. They call them something else, staves, and they start attacking with them, but they don't like stab with them. They point, and then all of a sudden in front of the Green Lanterns spawns a crystalline red energy structure. Not like a construct, but like actual physical crystals spawn in. And they're like, what? These things are just coming out of nothing. So Green Lanterns have to expel some energy to destroy all of them, doing whatever they can. We have, what's her name? Zrill, who is still doing the empathic morphology thing into Guy Gardner. He's just spouting one-liners, and the real Guy Gardner's like, okay, look, the energy's there. The attitude's right, but do I really sound like that? And they're like, no comment. So the fight continues. We see they're protecting Krona a little bit, but Krona has his own abilities to fight against, and they're like, okay, cool, good to know. So as everyone starts fighting off, John Stewart ends up getting encased in one of these crystalline structures. He's only got a 15% power level, but he manages to expend a whole bunch of energy all at once to get out of it, and now he's only got 5% left. The aliens are like, oh, he's expended their stolen light. Go get him. And as they're about to attack John, in comes Guy with a 18-wheeler construct that just runs over a bunch of the aliens. And he's like, ha-ha, you guys wouldn't last a moment in my Red Lantern Corps, you stupid bastards. So he goes back, makes sure John's okay. They're still trying to fight against the aliens. Everyone's power levels are dropping. And Guy and John realize, all right, we don't have much of a choice. We gotta go, and we gotta try to do whatever with this power battery or this pyramid, whatever it is. And Guy is a little bit more concerned, saying like, okay, I don't trust Krona and like whatever his calculations may have been, but we're not going to die here without at least giving it a shot. So they go into the pyramid, or they go right up next to it. They hold out their rings like they're charging. And then all of a sudden, the red energy starts being converted to green, and everyone stops, including the aliens, and they all watch this thing happen. And as it 100% turns green, all the red is gone from it. The rings for Guy and John say power level 200%. And they're like, wait a minute, hold on, did that say 200%? That's ridiculous. And John's like, yeah, it feels like cleaner and more powerful. I don't know how to explain it. And Krona starts throwing off theories. He's like, it must have adjusted to the color of your ring. It keyed onto your output. And Guy's like, yeah, I knew that would happen. So at that point, the aliens fly away because they lost the flag. The flag has been captured. So everyone else is like, okay, let them go. Don't worry about it. Everyone get your charge. So they all step up to get their 200%, and they're like, awesome. Except John talks to Kilowog, and he's like, wait a minute, hold on. Staves, pyramids, we've heard about all this stuff before. And Kilowog's like, yeah, and I didn't like it back then either. So John looks out at the universe. He's like, all right, if everyone's filled up, we got to go find the other lanterns and make our way back home. And before they leave, Krona's like, that sucks. I really would have liked to study this pyramid thing. And Guy's like, oh, hey, don't worry. There's plenty in store for you. Wink. And Krona's like, what's that supposed to mean? What are we talking about? And John's like, Guy, can you please not break the timeline? Like, seriously, I really don't need you doing that right now. And he's like, yeah, whatever. So at that point, they all fly off. And John kind of realizes, he's like, okay, we've all managed to get displaced. We don't know where we're at. We're in hostile territory. We're all wondering if we're ever going to see home again. This isn't a good scenario. And as he's thinking that, in come those cleaner things, little clouds from before. And obviously they were a threat before, and so they get ready to fight. They're like, all right, everyone, take your stand. Here we go. And then they just walk on by. The cleaners just float by and want nothing to do with them. And they're like, what? And Guy says, didn't they want something? Didn't they consider us foreign matter or something like that? To which point Krona points out, hey, maybe it was the energy in your rings from before. Maybe that was the foreign material, and now that you have filled up with their energy, you're not foreign anymore? And they're just like, all right, that makes as much sense as anything else. As does a voice next to them in a blue text bubble that says, that's an interesting theory. I'd love to test that. Enter Relic, who John immediately recognizes and says, ah, crap. If Relic's here, we're not only in a completely different universe, we're in the universe before our universe. We time traveled. Which I feel like the Krona thing should have been obvious, you know? Like, clearly, you've time traveled. I don't know. I understand that this is supposed to be a reveal of, like, specifically where they are, but come on, you definitely time traveled when Krona shows up being like, oh yeah, hey, how's it going? I'm not crazy yet. So I like it. I realize I start so many of these little like post things with that. I like it, and the but here is, this is kind of just an explanation issue. It's kind of just setting up more of the universe. The first issue was the eye grab. The second issue is the, okay, you're with us now, so let's go ahead. Let's really run with this. And then we'll end on a big cliffhanger for us to then do some more stuff with later on. The attack battle thing against the red aliens, whatever. It really doesn't make that much of an impact. The biggest thing is the mystery of this pyramid, and then Relic at the end, which really that's about 4 pages out of 22. So not great, but also not awful. The art really works for me. I like Guy Gardner in this. There's things to like. I think it does break like the 5 mark, probably even the 6 mark. So I'll give it a 7. I'll say it's at that, but like, I don't know. I'm still waiting for it to give me either a ticking clock where it's, okay, we have to get this done now, like make it more urgent, or give me something that is a more clear goal than get home eventually. Like, they have to beat this big bad. They have to do this. They have to do that. Because right now, it's kind of just this leisurely, we don't really have an end goal that we are directly moving to. We're just exploring options with the vague direction of get back to our own time. And I need something a bit more direct than that. But for right now, it's okay. I think this is mainly being hurt by the fact I know it's only 6 issues, and I don't feel like we've made good use of our time. So I'll say 7, but it'll go down if I feel like it's being wasted. Harley Quinn number 18, written by Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Chad Hardin and Jed Dougherty. I think Jed Dougherty's just doing like a couple pages though. So last issue, who cares? Who cares? A gang of Harleys has been made. Something about her boyfriend getting rearrested. And then there's a Popeye the Sailor Man stand-in as our primary threat. This issue picks up with Harley basically saying, yeah, here's everything I've done for the past few issues. My boyfriend got arrested. I got a gang of Harleys, and also Popeye the Sailor Man. His name is Captain Horatio Strong, which sounds familiar as a DC character, but it's just Popeye. So we see that Harley Queens and Harvey Quinn, who were originally sent out to deal with that, have since gone missing. And so they're there to figure out what's going on. As they go out, and the whole gang of Harleys is going out to find out what's going on here. They get down to the last known location, and they see medics have been called, a whole 9 yards. And one of the guys is like, "Hey, you look really similar to those two people who tried to get to him in the bathroom." Yeah, it turns out that he beat them up. They're in the hospital. They're just a couple of bruises. They're fine. They'll be out sooner rather than later. But the one guy says that how he is usually a really nice guy, but he's like something took over his sea-loving brain, and he was talking about alien seaweed and getting rich, and then he ate it, and that's where this whole trouble started. So Harley asks where he was headed. She sends a couple of her crew to go deal with her boyfriend's mom and make sure that she's doing okay, because obviously that's a whole thing. And she just takes with her, I don't know, one of them. I couldn't even be asked to care who this one is. So they start making their way downtown. They're walking fast, and faces pass, and they pass by a gang that sees Harley on her cell phone as they're talking about the gentrification of towns and how it's like a major concern for the people who live there at any point. And as Harley passes by this gang, they come up on her and just like, "Hey, that's a real nice phone you got there. How about you give it to us?" And she's like, "Oh, which one of you dingleholes wants to eat a baseball bat?" And they pull out a bunch of guns, and they continue to make threats and basically say, "Yeah, give us the phone if you don't want no problem." She's like, "Wait, so if I just give you the phone, then you leave us alone?" And she's like, "Yeah, totally, awesome." And the other gang member there, Quinn, that's it, is like, "Oh, we can take him. Let me at him. Let me at him." And Harley's like, "Oh, no, here you go. Here's the phone. You can take it, and we'll be on our merry way. However, one thing you should know about that phone is that it's rigged to explode with an explosive force that could take out a city block if it's after a few minutes after it's out of my hands. So you better watch your back, buddy." And he's just like, "Yeah, okay, we'll take the risk." And he's like, "I'm serious. It's going to be a mess." And he's like, "Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Get out of here." So Harley and Quinn go sprinting down the street, and Bolly's like, "That was a pretty good gag, and us running away is really selling it." Now Harley's like, "Yeah, run faster though." And she's like, "Wait, what?" And then the whole explosion happens, killing these guys, I assume, instantaneously. However, simultaneously, they just happen to be walking in front of a tattoo parlor, and out of the window comes a guy who just was getting a tattoo. He looks kind of similar to Horatio Strong. But when they go inside, they turn out that Horatio Strong is in there beating people up. And he is like, "Oh, none of the needles can pierce my skin, and all I want's a tattoo, rumble, grumble." And they ask if he is who he is, and he says, "Yeah, we've been hired to find you. Your wife is looking for you. She's worried about you, so now you got to come in with us." And he's like, "Ha ha ha, let's see about that." And he downs some of the magic seaweed again. And he's like, "All right, well, let's just go kick the crap out of him." So they start attacking him with sledgehammers and baseball bats. It ain't doing nothing. Eventually, they both get booted out of the tattoo parlor and just like, "Okay, well, he just took a bunch more of that seaweed, which is obviously the source of his powers, so I've got a plan. You go for his eyes, and I'll take the killing blow." And so they jump in, sledgehammer to the eyes, manages to blind him temporarily, as Harley grabs 2 pieces of seaweed from his pocket and starts scarfing it down. Meanwhile, Horatio Strong's just leaving. He's just like, "Whatever, I don't care anymore." And as he's getting away, Harley's like, "Hey, the biggest risk you can take in life is not taking any risks, and I'm going to do this so that I'll have the power to take him down." And she's like, "See? No side effects." And then she starts tripping balls, and we get the other art style here where we do a whole pirate themed thing where she's on a ship and all of her like housemates are her crew. She has a chamber boy of Bruce Wayne, and all of a sudden she's called up to deck. Turns out there's an enemy ship that represents all the Gotham stuff, including Batman and Joker, across the sea, and they are poking and prodding at a mermaid they have in a cage, which is Poison Ivy. And she's like, "Not my Ivy. We will not stand for this." And Tony, who's on the ship, points out, like, "They're just trying to provoke you to attack. Don't give in, blah, blah, blah." And just like, "They're provoking me, all right, and we're going to provoke them back." And they're like, "Okay, how do we do that?" And then Harley just moons them. And Joker and Batman are like, oh, prepare the cannons, let's do it. So they have a big old epic sword fight or whatever. Harley manages to free Ivy, she dives into the sea, and then she starts having a sword fight with Joker, and they just start saying how much they hate each other, and they never liked each other. It's like, oh, shut up, you're disgusting, I hate you. And then as they're sword fighting, they're literally chopping each other's clothes off until they just start making out on the deck. The ship goes down. Ivy manages to pull Harley onto the shore, and as she's coming to, she's like, oh, so what does the future hold now? And Mermaid Ivy says, okay, well, you got to wake up and find Captain Strong. She's like, wait, what? And then we find out that Harley's in the hospital bed, and Ivy's there and just like, hey, they said that you ate some magic seaweed. That was really stupid. And she's like, oh, yeah, how long have I been here? Turns out a day and a half. The other Quinn team members that were in the hospital checked out just as she was checking in. Everyone is currently going to the location of Captain Strong's house because they want to get revenge for you, and so they all show up. He's sleeping out on the porch. One of them lets out a fart, which wakes him up, and he's like, I know, a ship's horn anywhere. So he eats some more seaweed, and despite them doing their best to fight against, he literally overpowers all of them. So Ivy is recounting this because it all happened in the past. He's like, yeah, no, he carried them all away. Everyone else was afraid to follow. And they were brought to a ship that was last heading east. So Harley's like, oh, I got to go get my girls. Please, get me out of this hospital. And so they all run off, and they need to get themselves on a boat. Meanwhile, out on the boat, Captain Strong is coming to his senses. He's like, oh, I can't believe I kidnapped all of you. That's not who I am. I'm so sorry. I'll start untying all of you. I'm so sorry. I can't believe I did all this. But boy, oh boy, I sure am hungry. I'm just going to have a little snack before and he pulls out more seaweed and eats it, and everyone just groans. And he goes back to his own crazy self. And as he's staring them down with a giant knife in his hand, he's imagining that they are saying things, and he's like, oh, all this noise has to stop, and the only way for that to happen is for all of you to be dying. So, okay, yeah, sure. I don't know how to grade these things. What do you want from me, man? Did I enjoy reading it? Not really. Once it got to the pirate bit, I am constantly reminded of how this book is, I want to say padded, but it's not. Because to be padded, there has to be something besides padding in it. And this book consists entirely of padding, depending on what you consider the A plot to be. Either the A plot is them dealing with Captain Strong, in which case all of the pirate stuff and all the Harley Quinn gang stuff is B plot padding, or the Captain Strong stuff is the B plot and is the padding, in which case there's not really all that much to do with the Quinn stuff, or like the pirate stuff definitely wasn't. So like, I don't know. There's just like nothing here for me to judge upon. And I'm really not like that big of a fan of the humor anyway, so it's not even like I could say, oh, at least it was funny. It's fine. It's okay. I'm going to say 6. I'm just going to say the number 6. Whatever you choose to take from that, good, bad, yes, no, read, don't read, take whatever you will. But it's the number 6. Black Canary number 2, written by Brendan Fletcher, art by Annie Wu. So last issue we had a bunch of weird shadow creatures going after the band's guitarist named Ditto, and Black Canary has sworn to teach the group how to fight and use guns and such in order to protect Ditto for the rest of the tour. So we open up out in the desert, and it's basically just target practice. Canary is showing how good she is with a gun, and she's like, all right, Paloma, give it a shot. And Paloma's like, no, that's not for me. And she's like, okay, you're right, it's not for you. It's for Ditto. Shoot the damn gun. And everyone else is just kind of like complaining and whining, saying like, she's pushing us too hard. Like, all those fighting classes, hand-on-hand stuff we've been doing have been absolute murder. Like, oh God, this is just awful. Meanwhile, Canary goes over to Ditto, who's just playing the guitar. and trying to talk to her and saying, like, I was married once and we talked about having kids, and, I got my own secrets, Ditto. You can open up to me if you want. We can talk about anything, like, who are you? What are these creatures? And Ditto doesn't say anything, but starts to walk over while still playing the guitar. And Canary's like, when you played your guitar, there was a sound, and it sounded like really familiar. I haven't heard it before, but like I felt it before. And then all of a sudden, Heathcliff starts freaking out. And so she runs over, and Heathcliff says, someone's watching us, and they look around, don't see anything. And he's like, there was a shimmer or something. It kind of looked like frosted glass for just a moment. And they continue to look around, and Canary starts stepping forward, and we see that there is this enormous blimp just right in front of them, but it is cloaked, so they can't actually see it. And Canary's just about to reach out and touch it when she calls back, and she's like, all right, everyone grab your gear, we're going to get going. And as she grabs the targets that they were practicing on, all of them have perfect shots in them. And they're like, who took these shots? And they look over at Paloma, and she's like, what'd I do? So we see that the tour is continuing. Some people are noticing how tense everything is. They're still performing the shows, but like it's completely silent, and as they're setting up and doing sound checks, and then on the way out, they just rush out the door. They're not staying for anything. And they're like, what the hell's going on here? And there's one woman who seems to be at a bunch of the shows, and we don't know who she is yet. So at some point, it looks like Canary is dyeing her hair. She doesn't have dyed hair later on, so I don't know if this is like comes back or whatever, but she's dyeing her hair black, and everyone's like, oh God, doesn't that like burn? It's chemicals and stuff. She's like, yeah, don't worry about it. So we see that the rest of the group is out, like, just doing some light training, just, like, doing some martial arts moves. And as they are talking about how much of a pain in the ass this all is, they hear a noise from inside the tour bus. And as soon as they get over to the bus, someone comes out. They do a flip, like, pull them over the top of them. And it turns out that this is Maeve, who goes by the name of Bo. And she is the previous singer for the band. And Heathcliff's like, oh, I kind of recognize you. What's going on? And she's basically, I don't know, just been following them around, trying to see what's been going on. She seems a little bit jealous of what's happening, but she does have her own act now. And so Byron and Bo, Maeve, what do you want to call her, starts fighting. Paloma tries to jump in the middle and be like, hey, come on, this is what got us all into trouble in the first place. And that's when Dinah shows up, and she's like, oh, hey, I was sneezing a lot. And must be because I'm allergic to show-offs and jerks. And so they have a stare down for a second before Maeve just darts. She just runs off. And Canary's like, all right, so that's her. I've seen her at the shows. I thought she was just a groupie. And it's like, yeah, don't worry about it. We've got a history. She's just got her pride or whatnot. And at that point, Paloma kind of explodes a little bit. She's like, look, yeah, you know about our past. You're putting us through all this, but we don't know a damn thing about you. Like, how do you know how to kill people? That's kind of a major thing to want to know. And Diana's like, look, we got a few more shows just to fill out the contract. After that, I'm out of here. Like, you don't have to worry about me at all. But for right now, let's go shopping. And so they head out for some musical equipment. We see that Ditto takes an interest in one of the guitars, starts playing the strings, and it gives that same sort of feeling that Dinah had before, and she recognizes it as her superpower, as her vocal abilities. And as it starts resonating, as she starts humming along with it, all of a sudden, she sees one of these, it's not a shadow creature, it's a person, but they decloak. Their cloaking ability is no longer active, and she's like, what the heck? All right, guess we're fighting. So she asks why you're following us. The figure just looks over at Ditto, and she's like, all right, time to fight. And she's about to charge up a canary cry before the figure throws a vocal dampener at her that wraps around her neck. So they're forced to fight just melee style as Ditto runs off. Canary uses all the different instruments around the place to fight. She uses flutes like eskrima sticks and whatnot. Until finally she throws the guy up into an upper layer of the music store and then straight through a glass window down to the street below. And the rest of the band comes in. They're like, who the hell is this guy? And Canary's like, don't know. So she takes off his mask, gasps, and she says, okay, we need to run like hell. Because if people like him are after us, then we're in a bigger danger than I thought. And she recognizes the person as Kurt, her husband. Da-da-da. All right, so I believe, I could be wrong here, but I believe the last time we saw Kurt, he was working with, I think it was Waller or maybe the government as a whole. That was at the end of Birds of Prey. There was some sort of like facility, and Kurt had amnesia as well. He didn't remember anything about Dinah. So I don't know. We might be picking up on those threads. We might not be. Having it be Kurt, interesting enough. I do hope that this book does more with him and fleshes him out a bit more than the previous books that have done it. That's Team 7, Birds of Prey, and there was one more. But regardless, they always felt like Kurt was kind of just a tool, not in a derogatory way, but just kind of an object to be used for the plot rather than his own character. So hopefully we get a bit better out of that. But if it's related to wherever he went off to at the ends of Birds of Prey, kudos on the continuity. Beyond that, the rest of the issue is fine. I think the fight scene is good. We're setting up the mystery here and obviously setting up how the band is going to get more and more annoyed with Dinah having this dark history, and they just have to trust her on everything, and she's not revealing anything to them. So yeah, I'm going to say this one is probably I'll say a 7. It just kind of feels in the 7 zone to me. It's not great, it's not bad, it's just the next issue continuing on the story. Superman Wonder Woman number 19, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Doug Mahnke. So last issue we had Lana calling Superman, begging for help, something happening, and then when Superman got to Smallville, it turns out that everything that was related to the Kents at all has been yoinked out of the ground and completely removed, save for one secret bunker that nobody knew about. And then the Suicide Squad showed up. So we open up with the Suicide Squad going up against Superman and Wonder Woman saying like, all right, we were told to fight, let's do it. And they're like, why? And it's like, it's not our reason to question why. We just do what we have to do. So Harley, Deadshot, Captain Boomerang, Black Manta, and Reverse Flash all go into fight. And I mean, it goes basically as well as you could expect it to. Superman takes a little bit more of a beating because he is currently in his depowered form. But Wonder Woman is like not even worried. Reverse Flash manages to land some punches, but she just kicks him in the face. Harley Quinn is just grabbed onto the back of Superman, trying to like bash him over the head with a bat. She does take some shots with a gun. Seems to miss because they don't make any mention of it. And then Harley gets wrapped up in a lasso of truth and thrown across the entire cemetery that they're fighting in. So then we go to Black Manta, where he starts grappling with Superman, and Black Manta's like, I can't believe I'm grappling with Superman, and like, I'm lasting this long. And Superman's like, grave robbing's a bit beneath you, don't you think? And he's like, these graves were empty before we got here. Because, again, they were here because the Kents were buried, and now they're not. So at that point, Superman points out, well, you're still part of this, so you get part of the beating. And Deadshot starts taking aiming at Superman, calls out Wonder Woman for getting in the way, saying, hey, wait a minute, are you protecting your boyfriend? And she's like, oh, I can't, you're making it obvious here that you're going after Superman and you don't really care about me, so you're tipping your hand. We see that Black Manta does manage to use his laser eye stuff to disrupt Superman enough that he's about to have a casket dropped on him. And he's like, oh, maybe it's time you took a little nap. And Superman says, funny, I was thinking the same thing. And so he punches Black Manta down to the ground and just starts wailing on him. Like, he does not hold back until Black Manta is essentially unconscious. Wonder Woman apparently did the same thing to Deadshot. And they're like, well, maybe we should have left one of them unconscious so we could get some answers. And then Black Manta starts coughing. And just like, oh, no, cool, great. So Superman grabs Black Manta by the head and says, like, where have they taken the people from Smallville? What are they doing? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. As it's open season on Superman, and that's all I know. We all know what's going on with you, Kent. And Superman's like, oh, yeah, well, things change. And he starts, like, crushing Black Manta's mask. And Wonder Woman's like, hey, we're wasting time. We should get out of here. And then Deadshot wakes up, takes a few shots at Wonder Woman and Superman. Wonder Woman, of course, just shrugs it off. But Superman takes a few more bullets, takes quite a few to the chest, and he's like, yeah, these are custom-made armor-piercing shells, how do you like them? Wonder Woman eventually gets over, stops him from taking shots, throws him into a tree, but Clark took a heavy beating there. He's shot up quite significantly, but he's like, I'm fine, I'm good, don't worry about it. So we cut over to the shadowy government organizers who are talking to Amanda Waller saying, well, it looks like your team failed and we lost optics, but it tells me that it's like we're on to the next step. We saw him getting shot. And Waller's like, yeah, sure, whatever. My team's done. So she gets an evac team going on as Clark and Wonder Woman hobble away from the graveyard. They bring along the mailbox for the Kent house because that was the only thing left. And we see the government agents finally get eyes on them again. It says like, all right, they're about to leave our satellite range. Initiate the seizure protocol. Also, we get to see this guy's face. I don't recognize it. I have no idea who this is, but I'm sure we'll get there. So we're back down in the bunker, and Wonder Woman is pulling bullets out of Superman's skin, and she's like, I don't like that you can get shot and that it can actually hurt you. Like, I'm pulling bullets out of your body. Like, something's got to change here. Everything's being thrown off kilter. And he's like, look, Diana, I need you to do something for me. If we're out on the battlefield and you got one eye on me the whole time, I don't feel comfortable that you would be able to protect yourself. You need to trust that I can take care of myself. Okay? And she's like, I do trust you, and I will absolutely moving forward. And as Superman pulls out another bullet, he's like, you ever feel like we're just soldiers? Like, we're just standing up against these huge monsters, and now finally I feel as vulnerable as like an actual soldier on the front line. It's a weird feeling. So Wonder Woman points out like, hey, you know, we're assuming that your powers are just kind of low right now, but what happens if they keep dropping? What happens if you get weaker and weaker? And he's like, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And she doesn't want to lose him. He's like, you won't, don't worry about it. But she points out like, these bullets were specially made to like try to take you out. They didn't work this time. But what if this is just the beginning? And he's like, what did you we just agreed. Like, you're not going to worry about me. I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about Lana and all the other things going on in Smallville. And as he looks in this bunker, he sees a snow globe of the White House. And he's like, I'm thinking I might need to take a little trip here. And Wonder Woman's like, I'm going with you. He's like, no. You can't be seen with me. I'm about to go do something very illegal. And Superman's not really on the up and up. So you need to stay away. Like, don't be tainted by me. And she's like, I don't care about that. We share our fights. Like, your fight's my fight. And he's like, not this one. You can help me by staying outside of all this, doing your own thing. I love you, but I'm going alone. So we cut to DC. We see Superman is taking out Secret Service agents. And then finally, he just knocks on the door of the Oval Office, walks right in and saying, hey, Mr. President, I've got some bad news. And the president says, I have to go. He's here. So, okay, cool, great. Superman is talking to the president. It's not that I dislike the ending. I think the ending is probably fine and what it'll be developed. But this issue feels very much of two halves. It feels very much of like we have the Suicide Squad fight and Superman gets shot. The shooting leads to the talk between Wonder Woman and Superman about his new mortality. And then all of a sudden it's just, I'm going to the White House. Like, I'm sure there's a plan. It'll be explained exactly how it all ties in. But like, because it was preempted with the snow globe, it feels like this is kind of just on a whim Superman saying, I'm going to go pull the last strings I have to pull and seeing if I can get out of whatever the hell's happening here with this secret government agency. And I'm sure it'll work, but it doesn't feel like a natural growth. It doesn't feel like this is obviously the next step we need to go to. It feels like this is like 4 steps down the road instead. Art-wise, looks great. Really don't have a problem with any of that. My only concern, and this is not founded yet, but my only concern is that this is going to feel a lot more like the Superman Batman book, where that book has split up Batman and Superman because it's no longer Bruce Wayne right now, it's Jim Gordon. So it feels very separate between the two. It feels like they're doing their own different things. I'm a bit concerned that that's what this book is going to be doing soon, where Superman can't really be on the same level as Wonder Woman, so we're going to have this little rift growing where they're going to be doing their own things. I really don't want that from this book. I like seeing them do things together. It enforces that relationship idea, but you know, there's only so much you can do within continuity. So yeah, I think this one's probably going to be I'll say flat 7. It's close to the 7.5. It's just not squeaking up there for me. If it felt more natural to get to the White House thing, maybe I could go there, but it feels more like we need to end on a cliffhanger and I got 3 pages left. So yeah, 7 for right now, but we'll see if it improves over time. Dr. Fate number 2, written by Paul Levitz, art by Sonny, Liew. So last issue we had Khalid being called to put on the helmet of fate, and also his father got into a pretty severe car accident at the end of the last issue because of one of the gods of probably death. It's usually that. So we pick back up. He is on top of the Grand Army Plaza in Brooklyn. And he's like, all right, I may have just gone into a hallucinatory state and woken up on top of this giant structure, and I don't know how to get down, so what's this all about? And then all of a sudden he hears the voice of his dad, and it's in like a little ethereal text bubble, and he's like, what, Dad? And the helmet's saying, go to him, and he's just like, all right, yeah, sure, whatever, I have nothing to lose. So he puts back on the helmet. And he's like, oh, okay, well, at least it's consistent. I'm back in this dream state. So he gets up and he flies off of the thing, and he's talking about how it feels like he's on a roller coaster. He's like, okay, but like, how do I know where my dad is? I don't even know where I'm going. And the helmet's just like, listen, feel him out. And he hears his dad yelling, help me. Again, there's a bunch of wild dogs on top of his cab. And when Khalid finds him, he's just like, hey, dogs, get out of here. And they start growling at him. And he ends up using his fate magic to get the door off the cab and get his dad out, but that's when the god, I'm going to say Anubis until I have another name, if there is one. So Anubis is like, hey, this is my blood price. Like, Bastet thought that you could protect the mortal world, but you're stealing my blood price. That ain't cool, bro. And Achilles just like, whatever you are, I'm done with talking animals for the day, so bye-bye. And then Anubis causes he starts laughing, and Anubis causes a massive lightning strike that ends up hitting a plane and zapping like one of the wings off. And Khalid's still carrying his dad. He's like, what the hell am I supposed to do about something like that? It's a friggin' jet. And so he says like, okay, well, I'm flying, so maybe I can manipulate other things to fly. And he reaches out and he puts it with some fate magic. Ultimately, doesn't really seem to do anything, but the plane at the very least doesn't like completely explode. It just like screeches onto the ground, and he's like, all right, well, that was a failure. So he looks down at his dad and he's just like, all right, well, I gotta get some help for you, I guess. So we're gonna take you to the hospital, and hopefully I won't be brought into the psych ward. And so he flies over to some EMTs, and he passes off his dad's body. The EMTs don't seem to notice that he's wearing this freaky-ass helmet, and he's like, okay, maybe that's part of the powers? That's convenient, at least. So we cut back over to Anubis, who sees the downplane, and he's just like, Bastet, you idiot, you chose so poorly. That mortal's not going to be able to do nothing about me. And then he basically just villain monologues where he's like, the waters will soon arrive, and then the floods will come, and proper balance, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to drown the world. So we see over at the hospital, Khalid's mother is there in the hospital room along with his girlfriend, and he's come to, but he seems to be at least temporarily blind. He's not able to see anything. And he's like, I'm telling you, the last thing I saw were jackals coming all over my car. It was crazy. And he thinks he's been cursed, and his mom's just like, hey, don't worry about that. It's all going to be fine. It's all good. And then all of a sudden the doctor comes in and says, hey, we should probably talk about what we should do for care in case this blindness isn't temporary. And so we cut back to Khalid back home. His girlfriend's there in his room. And she's like, hey, you know, we're both going in to be doctors. Your dad will be fine. Like, we all know, like, the actual odds and stuff like that of things going wrong. And he tries to play it off. He's like, oh, so you want to play doctor, huh? And she's like, no, I've still got med school tomorrow, and your mom's downstairs. I'm out. And so she just leaves. In doing so, the helmet sits up and starts floating over to him, goes over to his laptop and pulls up a bunch of ancient Egyptian pages. And it literally just says, learn. And it's like, yeah, I'm going into med school, not archaeology. I do not care about that stuff. And he's like, you're going to learn one way or another. So then he zaps him with some mystical energy. Everything gets all distorted. And we see he goes into some sort of ethereal plane where the Egyptian gods are, and we meet up with Nabu, the priest of Thoth the Wise. Thoth is the one whose helmet this actually is. And he's like, yes, Bastet gave very much for you to have this helmet. You have Pharaoh's blood in you. He's like, bro, I was born in America. I have nothing to do with Egypt. You chose poorly. I genuinely do not want anything to do with this helmet. And Nabu's just like, you're going to take the helmet, though. Like, if we just skip this, you're just going to take the helmet, okay? You will choose the fate of man. And then all of a sudden, his mom knocks on the door. He's back in his bedroom. And she's like, hey, I'm going to go down. I'm going to see your father. You can stay here. Like, I know you got a lot going on soon. And he's like, yeah, you have no idea. So he tries to rationalize it. He's like, look, I've got my own life. I have to deal with my life. There was a rabid dog talking about the price of blood. I don't want to do any of this again. And finally, he hears some howling outside. He grabs the helmet and just says, why me? And the helmet says, because you must. So he goes outside, and there's once again a whole bunch of jackals and wild dogs and whatnot. And they are just tearing apart a car. It may be the mother's car, but we don't see her in it. And he's like, you're the same ones who attacked my dad's cab. You made a mistake. And he's trying to fight them off. He tries using the fade magic. One of them gets a solid bite in, and then he slaps it away. And as it runs away, he's like, oh man, that's going to need stitches. I'm going to get rabies. This sucks. But then he looks down and it's starting to heal itself. And he's like, what the hell am I got my hands on here? So, yeah, that's the issue. I mean, it's very much just a learning issue. Very much of, all right, you've got the powers. Now you're going to learn what all you can do. Frankly, I feel like I'd rather this particular power set be a little bit more ethereal. A little bit more... It's magic, you know? Like, you don't want it to explain exactly how the magic works, because then... you know what to expect. You can't get beyond that anymore. I kind of want his powers to just be a little bit of whatever you need it to be while not feeling too outrageously over the top. Like, he's very inexperienced, and that should be his cap. That should be the thing that's keeping him at that level. So simple things like he only knows how to fly. He doesn't know how to land a plane. He still gets bit, but it heals him automatically. Like, that's a good power set for a starter to have, and I'd like to see him explore that into a larger power set as the series continues. Obviously, not going to continue for too long. It's only like 12 issues max, but still, it's got room to grow at the very least. So yeah, this one, I can't remember what I gave the last issue, but I think this one is probably going to be closer to I'll say 7. It's tough, but 7.5, it just doesn't feel like it's quite there because not a lot really happens this issue. This feels more like this is an issue we have to have so that we don't have to spend the next bunch of issues just piecemealing out his general power set. We get a gist of it here, moving on. So yeah, 7's pretty much where I'm at. Martian Manhunter number 2, written by Rob Williams, art by Eddy Barrows. So last issue, we had a whole bunch of attacks going on around the world, seemingly caused by white Martians. And the implication that we were getting was that Martian Manhunter realized that he was simply a tool that was mind-wiped or brainwashed or whatever into thinking that he was the last of the Martians when actually he was a weapon. And he came to NASA saying, hey, you got to kill me. So this issue opens up with him above Earth, and he sees all the different attacks going on and everyone freaking out, and he's like, I got to be brave, I got to be a hero, I got to do this for them, for the planet. And as he goes down, we see the woman at NASA is like, check out our giant transwarp engine. We've managed to get it right. It'll make a localized wormhole that can transport matter across the galaxy. But right now, it just makes things go boom. It destroys like 94% of anything that goes into it. And he's like, oh, that's a weapon. It's like, no, we're NASA. We don't make that. But like, yes, right now it's kind of a weapon. And he's like, okay, but if it fell into the wrong hands, you'd like cause a black hole and destroy everything. Like, this can't happen. And then all of a sudden there's a loud boom and it's thundering outside. So they think it's thunder, but Martian Manhunter's like, no, that wasn't thunder. And standing near a broken window, causing more property damage, is Superman. And he's looks down and he's like, John, how did you know about all the terrorist attacks before they happened? And he's like, Superman, they used me to plan them. And we cut over to DC, where Mr. Biscuits is being led around by this kid down into a train station, a subway station. He bumps into a guy who's like, hey, watch it. And Biscuit just gets right in his face. He's like, where do you keep the train? I want to eat your train. And he's just like, what? What? And the kid's like, please excuse my grandpa. So they make their way down to the train station platform. Mr. Biscuits just drops into the tracks and he's like, ooh, is the train down here? And they're like, no, it's not down there. He's like, well, then where did the train go? And then there's some bright lights coming up from his side and he's like, oh, hey, Mr. Biscuits found the train. So we cut over to Dubai, where that one thief cat burglar named Pearl is currently parkouring for her life, outrunning some agents that she saw kill a guy, some rich dude that she was planning on stealing from. And now they're able to morph their arms into high-tech alien weapons. And she's like, yeah, these guys, they aren't human. I don't know what's going on, but I know the truth that all these terrorist attacks from around the world are actually caused by these guys. That's got to be it. And she says that, oh, the monster looked right at me, like it knew me. I don't know what to do. And as she's run out of places to run, the guys catch up to her. They're about to charge a shot at her. And then we cut back over to Superman, who is currently fighting against John. And he's not landing any hits because, of course, John just goes intangible. And he's like, look, I don't have time for this. They're coming for me. I've got to do this. And so he goes over to the scientist lady. He's like, look, I'm going to take the information I need out of your brain on how to turn this on. I apologize for that, but I'm going to put you to sleep and you're going to have a nice, peaceful little nap. And so she falls asleep and he's tangible just long enough for Superman to lay a hand on his shoulder saying like, hey, look, I don't know what's happening specifically, but you and I, we're both the last of our kind. We have a little kinship here. I'm not going to let you do this. And that just pisses John off. He's like, you know what? You're right. I am the last of my kind, but you don't know what that specifically means. And he grows huge and he starts attacking Superman. In comes the rest of the Justice League, at least Wonder Woman, Flash, and Cyborg. And he's just like, look, I'm going to stop trying to blend in. This is who I really am. This giant-ass form of me is what I've been hiding so I don't scare you. And so he fights against Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman honestly has a hard time fighting back against him. It looks like there's a giant explosion as the sword meets his fist. We cut back over to Pearl, who has a little psychic projection of John in her head. It's just telling her to run, and she recognizes it. She's like, that voice in my head, it's so loud, but also familiar. I know I've never heard it before, though. And she obeys without even thinking about it. She runs, she jumps out the window, and it's like a 7-story drop, and she just lands on her feet. No problem. The crowd below is like, what the hell? What just happened there? But it turns out it's not only 7-story drop, it's also like several hundred yards away. She is way down at a dockyard that she was looking at before. And she's like, okay, so I just jumped half a mile. That's cool. But the boy says, like, you can't get them, like, let them get you. And she's like, okay, I get it, voice. I got to leave Dubai, but like, that's scary for me. I've never left Dubai before. So we got back over to the Justice League fight. They're doing their best. Cyborg loads up a giant cannon on his back, which I didn't know he could do. It's like, think Iron Man armor with like the nanotechnology. Like it just comes out of nowhere, and he blasts it, and it does nothing. It just kind of pisses John off more. Flash comes in, tries landing punches, and he's like, all right, look, if this is what you want from me, then I'm just going to do this. And he grabs hold of Flash in one hand, knocks away Wonder Woman in the other, and knocks down Cyborg. And they're just, all of them immediately out. And Superman finally comes back up, and he's like, what are you doing? And he looks over at the Justice League, and they're all just standing still. they're all just kind of in a trance. And as Superman comes up, Wonder Woman comes out, and she's like, "Oh man, Clark, it was a crazy battle. We were fighting Martian Manhunter." And he's like, "Oh God, he put images in our heads. Like there was no fight." And so Superman frantically jumps back into NASA. He punches the wall out. Martian Manhunter standing inside of the weapon inside of the engine. He's like, "You don't understand. They gave me false memories. I had a family that I thought existed and it didn't. Like, oh God, imagine if Krypton was all just a dream, a cruel dream. I can't let whatever they want to use me for happen to this world for this world's sake." And Flash tries to run in to stop him. Superman tries to jump in to stop him. And Martian Manhunter tearfully says it was good to be a hero before he turns on the engine and seemingly explodes. We cut over to Mr. Biscuits, who seemingly has sensed this, and he says, "Oh my, he did it. That sure was brave of him. I didn't see that coming." Meanwhile, we see that he's got his hand outstretched, and he just stopped the train that was barreling down on him one-handed, like, doesn't do anything. So the kids are in awe, but then some cops show up. They're going to see what's up. The kids all scramble, except for Alicia, the main girl. And Alicia stays put, and Mr. Biscuits is like, "Hey, Alicia, I think I'm confused and a little bit scared, but I would sure like to eat some biscuits." And she's like, "Oh, okay, I can help you." And so she leans down. Mr. Biscuits grabs her and leaps away over top of all the cops. And he says, "Oh, they've come to take our biscuits and make a right mess of raisins and oats unless we stop them." And she says, "Stop who?" And he says, "The Martians, obviously." Okay. I think this issue is fine/good. I feel like this needs to be read as a two-parter with issue 1. And maybe that's how this entire series is going to go. Maybe this is the sort of thing where it was like written for the trade, where it had that in mind and didn't really have a good pacing issue to issue. But it felt like it ended on a decent enough note here. John seemingly has died, but there is some connection to all these other people, so that's going to relate in something. But I like, collectively, the first 2 issues, how it all kind of flows together. In terms of this issue specifically, ignoring the first one, I think that it's good, but the flow between the different storylines is just a little bit interrupted. It's a little bit janky, especially the Pearl one. I think that one's just a bit too separated as it stands now, and it didn't feel like it was really meshing with the other stuff. It just constantly was jutting into this totally separate thing going on. Mr. Biscuits feels related just by purpose of he only had like 2 sections. He had the going into the train station and then the ending bit. So that much was fine, but the Pearl bit was just, it was put in at the wrong spots, I think. So I'm going to say this one is a 7.5. I liked it. I really did like it, but I think it's just shy of that 8 because collectively the first 2 issues would probably be there. This one on its own just didn't have enough in it to really make it work the way I would think it was wanting to. So also, wasn't there like a detective subplot as well? Not that I think that should have been in this issue, but like that just wasn't even mentioned. So yeah, 7.5. Doomed number 2, written by Scott Lobdell, art by Javier Fernandez. So last issue we had our main character of Riser, who got infected with some doomsday spores from Superman Doomed, has transformed into a monster, and that's pretty much where we were at. He hasn't actually done anything yet. So we open up with this character named Miles. He's a tiny, geeky little kid who's in a high school or middle school gym class, and he's being picked last for dodgeball, and all the other kids are like, "Ah, man, that sucks. He's on our team," and whatever. And even the gym coach is yelling at him, saying like, "You're pathetic. Oh, try not to bleed all over my court," or whatever. And we see him narrating, basically saying like, you would think that, little kids are awful and they would grow up to become better adults, but like they don't. Little kids suck and they grow up into shitty parents and adults as well. But as they're about to start dodgeball, all of a sudden his watch goes beep, 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 and the coach chews him out for having technology, and he's like, hey, don't worry about it, coach. And he reaches into his jacket and pulls out some sort of weapon. And it turns out it's high tech. He says that Pletharians are able to 100% blend into their environments, and you couldn't tell right up until the moment that they are about to be killed, in which case then it just falters ever so slightly. And he's been tracking the coach for a while, and he takes him out, and as he shoots him, he turns into this giant pile of green goo. And he's like, all right, class dismissed, coach. And he turns around, he's thinking about killing all the other kids there because they're witnesses, and he's like, I don't want to do the paperwork, and it doesn't really matter anyway. So he just strolls off and says, I've got work to do. And he says that he got a call for the new biggest game that also is on this planet somewhere. Cut to Reiser, who is now crawling out of a sewer, and he's like, what in the hell happened to me? What's going on? And he recaps the last issue, basically saying, like, I almost hooked up with someone, and then all of a sudden I woke up in a sewer, and I'm a monster? What? And as he comes out of the sewer, it's in the middle of a road, so a bus just collides into him, but he's so invulnerable that it flips over him and skids to a scalp, and he's like, oh geez, oh god, I did it. Are there dead people on that? Oh geez. So he runs over, he sees that the bus driver is injured, and just like, okay, well, I gotta get her out of here. And he sees that the bus is about to like explode because the gasoline tank's on fire, and he's like, all right, move up quick. And so he pulls her out, and he's like, oh my god, she's so incredibly light. Like, I feel like I'm gonna break her just picking her up here. And then he kicks the bus like halfway across town, and it explodes in midair. And he's just like, all right, cool. I'm terrified, but I pulled it off. And then as he tries setting her down, she starts coming to. She looks up and sees this horrific looking monster in front of her, and she starts screaming. He's like, what? Don't freak out, don't freak out. But of course, everything he says comes across as roars and growls and stuff like that. So she freaks out some more. All of a sudden, the police are there, guns drawn. They're like, don't move, step away from the woman. And they do a little bit here of saying how, like, do you see how that could be confusing? You say, don't move and step away, and like the cops are just having banter with each other. And so he puts up his arms. He's like, oh, don't shoot, don't shoot. And then all of a sudden, as he reasons out, it's a defense mechanism, the centric blast, where a bunch of energy expels out all around him, and then suddenly he's not there. And I think it's implied that he teleported, but it's also kind of that he leaped. But regardless, as the cops are like, what the hell's going on? What do we do? Calling for backup. We see that looking down from the fire escape is that girl who he was about to hook up with, Clarice, and she looks on very interestedly before going back inside. So we go to the Metropolis water processing plant where he says that he arrived at. He said, I leaped over here on purpose. Again, I think that's literal, but who knows? And he kind of just collapses and says, oh, am I stuck like this forever? And as he collapses, he turns back into his normal form again. So we cut to the morning where he goes back to his place. We see the roommate, Roman, is talking to somebody and saying, I will await my orders, sir. And then all of a sudden Reiser comes in and he's like, hey man, I'm not doing so hot. And he collapses down on the ground. Roman's like, oh, did you get mugged? What the hell's going on? This isn't normal for you. And he's like, I'm fine. I just need sleep. Please do not call the cops and any of that stuff. And so Roman helps lay him down. And Reiser's internal monologue is like, this guy's the best roommate ever. There's no way he's going to be anything bad for me ever at all. And also, oh God, what happens if I transform again? I have to hope this was just a one-off. So he crashes and we just see this like shared look of like, as Roman and Reiser are trying to make sure that like neither of them know each other's secrets. So we cut back over to Lex Plaza where the cops are investigating the crater left by Reiser when he transformed. They hear a thud behind them, so they pull their guns, and once again he says, don't move, step into the light. And the other cops are like, seriously man, is that like a tick of yours? What are you doing? So we see stepping out of the light is Miles, the kid, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, officers. I just lost my ball around here. I was just looking for it. Oh, well, bother nobody." And he's like, "Oh, what's this saying they have here on Earth? Cha-ching." Because he just found the place where Riser, his bounty, started. Anyway, yeah. It's not the worst thing I've read by Scott Lobdell. It's not a compliment, but it's technically true. It's fine. It's okay. The biggest problem I have with Lobdell is the character writing, where it feels like we never left the 90s. It feels like this was all just a place to put one-liners and jokes and like just making them maybe not as cool as possible, but making them as over the top as possible. I guess that's kind of what I'm feeling from this, is that I don't feel a connection with any of these characters in a sense of I understand their wants. I understand their desires and their motivations. It's always, okay, well, yeah, that's crazy. That's an insane thing that happens. But like, it makes me view them more as devices than it does characters. It makes me view them more as things that deliver these lines and not something that is actually going through this process. So it's not great. I think I'm going to probably put it at like a 6. It's a lot of it's the Javier Fernandez art. It's very forgiving. It does a lot of good work. I think the character design on Miles is absolute trash, but because he's like an alien bounty hunter, it's kind of by design where they're trying to like subvert that. It's complicated. Still 6. I'm just not feeling any higher than that. And that's it. That is all the comics that were published by DC Comics this July 15th, 2015. And yeah, I don't really have anything else to add on to the end of this episode. Frankly, I'm hot. I'm uncomfortable. I want to go to bed. I'm just not. I had a decent time reading the comics. I had a decent time reviewing them, but now that I'm done, I'm not having a decent time anymore. As much as I love having you, I really do. Get out. There's nothing more here, except for, of course, the list of next week's comics. So, in mostly alphabetical order, we have Cyborg, number 1, which breaks the trend, but I have to mention a number 1 before anything else. And then continuing down, we have Aquaman, Deathstroke, The Flash, Gotham by Midnight, Grayson, Harley Quinn / Power Girl, Justice League 3001, Prez, Sinestro, Teen Titans, We Are Robin, and Wonder Woman. I don't really have anything else to say in there. Prez is amazing. Grayson's been great. Should be a decent week overall. The only maybe downsides to that is Justice League 3001, which I haven't been super fond of. Teen Titans been a little bit dicey. And We Are Robin, first issue didn't land for me, at least by memory. Maybe I give it like an 8.5 in the ratings, but by memory, it didn't really stick around too much. So we'll see how all that flies out. But Cyborg, that's a book. We'll see how that shakes out. Beyond all that, don't really have anything else to add. So if you have anything that you'd like to add, if you want to tell me how wrong I am on something for this week's comics, last week's comics, any comics at all, go ahead and hit me up in the comments down beneath the YouTube video. Or if you are listening to the audio version, you can check the description / show notes for a Patreon link or a Discord link or a subreddit link. They're also on screen on the video version. Check those out. I encourage you to exercise your freedom of speech if you live in a country that guarantees that. And if not, shut up. So yeah, that's going to do it for me. Thank you very much for watching, listening. Continue to support this podcast by, tuning in, showing up. That's literally the easiest thing to do, but you do it well. Congratulations. And always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.